Welcome to Crime&Colouring, a brand new channel for all you true crime colouring enthusiasts. Here you can watch relaxing colouring videos whilst listening to deep dives into some of the most horrific cases of true crime. Our first case is about how a 24-year-old heir to a multi-million-pound pie company turned against his best friend and stabbed him 37 times. To follow along with this case, follow, like and share the video. You can also leave a comment for future videos about any case recommendations that you would like us to deep dive into. So let's get into today's story. On Christmas Eve 2023, Dylan Thomas took two knives and left his best friend William Bush with more than 37 stab wounds in a horrific murder in the home they shared in Cardiff. Today we're going to take a look into the circumstances surrounding the attack and its lead up. Dylan Thomas was born in Jersey on the 30th of June 2000 to mother Kirsty Howells, a former Vogue model, and father Scott Thomas. He also has a stepbrother, Kellen, who is 4 years older than Dylan. However, not much is known about him. The family moved to Cardiff when he was just 1 year old. This case gained a lot of interest at the time it happened and during the court proceedings, as his grandfather, Sir Stanley Thomas, is co-founder of Peter's Pies, is said to have had a net worth of $230 million in 2013, and he attended court every day to support Dylan. Although Dylan had a financially privileged childhood, from a young age he was introduced to violence and anger. He described his childhood as mixed, happy, too sexual and loving. In January 2003, Dylan's father was jailed for 6 months after a vicious attack on his mother, in which he repeatedly beat her with a telephone. He pinned her down and slapped her and shouted, "I'll kill you, I'll kill you," in which 2-year-old Dylan and his stepbrother witnessed. This led to the breakup of their relationship when Dylan was just 3 years old, so he did spend the majority of his childhood with his mother and maternal grandparents. Today's victim, William Bush, was born on the 12th of February 2000 to mother Elizabeth and father John. He had an older brother Alex and an older sister Catherine. Dylan and William first met when they were both 13 years old at private school, the $44,000 a year Christ College, Brecon. Dylan was described as having very few friends and was regarded as quiet and a loner, with William being his only real friend. Dylan heavily relied on the support of William, and it is said that they would often play golf, go out in the evening and sometimes holiday together. William moved into the house in Cardiff, which Dylan's grandparents owned, in 2021 after attending and finishing university. William had his own room at the property and would pay rent on a monthly basis. When William left his job as a surveyor due to stress and ill health, he was not required to pay rent until he found work, and in return, William would help look after Dylan's dog Bruce and regularly drive Dylan anywhere he wanted to, as he could not drive himself. William had substantial savings and had taken out a loan for £10,000. William was soon due to start a new job and was planning on moving out to live with his girlfriend of 2 years, Ella Jeffries. During court proceedings, numerous incidents were discussed from the months leading up to the attack, bringing into question Dylan's mental health. In November 2023, Dylan was arrested in London after trying to climb a 14-foot wall of Buckingham Palace. During this incident, he was rugby tackled by a police officer, and after, he commented, "Well, I'm over the wall now, so you might as well show me around." When he was questioned, Dylan told the police that he was looking for energy fields between the palace and Cleopatra's Needle. He was out on bail for this just a few weeks prior to the incident of today's case. When William asked him about it, Dylan said he was just curious and wanted to know what would happen. This wasn't the only unusual behaviour he was displaying. He had also apparently begun talking about conspiracy theories, including things about witches, all of which he believed were real. He also believed he could harness gravity. Ella Jeffries said Dylan had told William a month or two before the incident, "I have thought or wondered about hurting you. I just wanted to see what would happen if I do certain things." This comment scared William and Ella, and she said that he had begun barricading his door on a night time. She wasn't comfortable with William living there and wanted him to move out ASAP. She told the court, "We have always planned to live together," and Will said he was fed up of living with Dylan and wanted to move out. "I think he wanted to get out of there, but he was too stubborn to go. He wanted to look after Bruce, and Dylan was his friend, and he wanted to make sure that he was okay." It is said that the prosecution accepted that Dylan was mentally unwell and prior to the incident, he had begun suffering from psychosis. One quote from the prosecution said, "Following this incident, his condition had worsened, as a result of which he has begun receiving treatment for schizophrenia at the hospital." Psychologists believe that Dylan had suffered at least one previous hallucination in which he believed William had threatened to drink his spinal fluid. He would also tell doctors that he'd experienced someone massaging his brain every time William played the guitar. It is also claimed that Dylan experienced an auditory hallucination whilst out shopping in Primark, which caused painful ringing in his ears. Rather than seeking medical attention, Dylan went straight to a solicitor's office in an attempt to sue Primark. So that was all in the few months of 2023 leading up to this shocking incident. It is clear now, after the fact, that Dylan was suffering with his mental health, but at the time, no one seemed concerned enough to seek help. Now this next part goes into quite a bit of detail about the hours before and during the attack, including the wounds that William suffered, so viewer discretion is advised. On the 20th of December, Dylan took a trip to Bristol to buy 2 LSD tablets, which were consumed at some point between the 20th and the 21st, as texts show him confirming with the dealer that they were good quality. Dylan had also used cannabis in the past. On the 23rd of December 2023, Dylan went out for a family meal and was seen on CCTV leaving at 21:54 p.m. His behaviour seemed completely normal, and he had arranged that night to stay at his grandmother's home, Sharon Burton. As the evening went on, Sharon began to get concerned as Dylan was acting restless and forgetful. He had stood out on her balcony in the rain and told her that he was depressed and lonely. Later, Dylan was unable to settle, and in the early hours of the 24th, Christmas Eve, some disturbing searches were found on his computer history. At 12:36 a.m, he had searched for the anatomy of the neck, jugular veins anatomy and function, including images, drug overdoses and psychiatric wards in Cardiff. At 2:24 a.m, Dylan messaged William on Snapchat saying, "I need to see you before you leave the house tomorrow. Let me know what time you go." Then at 2:44 a.m, "What time are you leaving tomorrow?" with loads of question marks, but he received no reply. At 3:31 a.m, he inquired about getting an Uber from his grandmother's house back to the home he shared with William, which was some 20 miles away. However, for an unknown reason, he didn't end up getting an Uber and waited until morning when he told his grandmother that he needed to go and walk his dog Bruce. So Sharon offered him a lift. So they set off at 10:41 a.m. At around 11 a.m, Dylan messaged William again, "Are you home?" In which William replied, "Yeah, I'm home." And Dylan said, "Okay, nearly home, stay there," with a kiss. They arrived at the home at 11:16 a.m. Sharon, the grandmother, pulled up outside the home to drop Dylan off and remained in the car waiting for him. Dylan made his way into the property, entering through the kitchen, where he armed himself with a large kitchen knife with a 15cm blade and a small flick knife with a 7cm blade. He then proceeded to go up 2 staircases and into William's bedroom. It is thought at that point William was sat on or stood by a beanbag facing away from the door where Dylan had entered. Dylan first used the flick knife to stab William in the neck from behind, with evidence afterwards showing that William then tried to flee the attack, running for his life down the 2 flights of stairs, through the kitchen and out onto the patio area. Within this time, Dylan had launched a frenzied attack, using the larger kitchen knife to stab William in the head and chest before finally cutting his throat, severing the main artery in his neck. This attack was so brutal that the kitchen knife was found to have bent at the tip, showing the force that Dylan had used. At 11:24 a.m, a witness in a nearby car park called 999 to report screams of horror as someone shouting, "Help me," came running from the property and approached the driveway gate and saw a body lying on his side with traces of blood on him, as well as seeing blood on the ground. In the horrific 999 call, the witness said, "Police, I think someone has been stabbed with a knife. I can see him and hear him now. Yes, a knife, a kitchen knife, a carving knife." Sharon has said the first time she knew something was wrong was when Dylan was banging on her car window, covered in blood, shouting, "He's gone crazy," just minutes after he had entered the house. She then pushed past him. By the time Dylan rang 999 at 11:32 a.m, 8 minutes after the initial witness report, she was attempting CPR on William on the patio. She can be heard in the background of Dylan's 999 call, which is available on YouTube, screaming for help and to be quick, while Dylan told the operators he needed help for his injured and bloody hands. It was later noted that Dylan had washed his hands before he had made that call. Once police arrived at the scene, shockingly, William was still alive, so at 11:45 a.m, Dylan was arrested for attempted murder and held in the back of a police van. Dylan had said to the police that William had been going psycho for months and that he had been telling William to leave the house. He also mentioned that William was off his head and high on cannabis at the time of the attack. This is a quote from Dylan. "It was fucking self-defence, mate. He was coming at me and I stabbed him in the back." Well, if that was true, that raises the question. If Dylan was acting in self-defence and scared for his life, why would he follow William down 2 flights of stairs, through the kitchen and then out onto the patio? Unfortunately, as a result of the attack, William tragically bled to death on the outside patio area. So at 12:10 p.m, Dylan was rearrested for murder.
Okay, so what's the time, Joe?
12:10.
Okay, so the time is 12:10, right? I'm now further arresting you on suspicion of murder, okay? So you remain under caution, so you do not have to say anything. It may harm you to offence if you don't mention when questioned. Some which you later around in court, anything you do say may be given evidence, okay? So the necessities remain the same for a prompt effective investigation to prevent any further injuries, okay? Do you understand? Alright.
William's post-mortem revealed that he sustained at least 37 separate stab wounds, including 13 to the front and side of his neck. The pathologist recorded each individual wound, which had then been given as evidence in the trial. These included a shallow stab wound of 1.3 centimetres, a slash wound up to 9 centimetres, a cut of 2.5 centimetres on the inner part of his right ear, a stab wound of 2.4 centimetres on the upper left-hand side of the neck, a stab wound of 1.5 centimetres, a shallow stab wound of 1.2 centimetres to the upper right side of the neck, a stab wound of 1.2 centimetres to the side of the neck, a stab wound of 1.9 centimetres to the right side of the neck. There was a cluster of 6 incised wounds to the front of the neck, a wound to the left chest cavity measuring 11 centimetres, a wound to the upper chest of 3 centimetres, a stab wound of 1.4 centimetres, a shallow incised puncture wound in the upper left chest, a stab wound 2.5 centimetres to the midline of the chest, a right thoracectomy wound of 2.5 centimetres, a 2.5 centimetre stab wound to the chest, a stab wound in the mid-belly wall, various injuries to the hand, a stab wound to the midline of the back of the neck, a stab wound which was 2 centimetres to the back of the neck, a stab wound to the left of the neck which was 6 centimetres, a stab wound which was 2 centimetres to the right hand side of the neck, and a 1.2 centimetre stab wound to the side of the neck, a stab wound of 2 centimetres, a stab wound of 0.9 centimetres to the back of the left shoulder, a stab wound of 2.7 centimetres to the back of the right shoulder, a stab wound of 2.4 centimetres, a stab wound of 3.5 centimetres to the upper back, a stab wound of 2.2 centimetres midline to the upper back, a stab wound entering the right chest cavity, a stab wound to the lower left back, and bruises to the right arm. Both of William's lungs were injured by stab wounds. While there were 200 millilitres of blood in the left chest cavity and the right lung contained a light coating of blood, Dr. Jones said, "When I moved the body, the blood leaked out of the chest and the neck." He also said there were 37 stab wounds, a slash wound to the right-hand side of his face, a cut to the right ear, a cut and 3 punctures to the front and side of the neck, a shallow puncture to the upper left chest, and multiple cuts to both hands, 13 to the left hand and 7 to the right. There was 1 stab wound to the right side of his head. There were 13 stab wounds to the front and side of the neck, 8 stab wounds to the back of the neck, 7 to the front of the trunk, and 8 stab wounds to the back of the trunk. Forensic scientists who examined the scene noted that the blood was found throughout the home, including in William's bedroom, staining on the stairway walls, on glass by the stairway, on kitchen units, drawers, worktops, dishwasher and windowsill, and extensive blood found on the patio area where he died. Blood was also found in the kitchen sink, where Dylan had attempted to clean himself up. So since his arrest and psychiatric evaluations, Dylan has been held in Ashworth Hospital in Liverpool, a high-security psychiatric hospital, where he is being treated for schizophrenia and psychosis. He admitted manslaughter by diminished responsibility, but denied murder, and he appeared in Cardiff Crown Court via a video link, showing no emotion and only speaking to confirm that he could hear the judge. On January the 24th, after just 3 hours of the jury deliberating, he was found guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 19 years. That is discounting the 337 days at the time of his sentencing that he had already served. William has been described as a talented and caring man who would do anything for anyone. He was incredibly kind and funny, and he would light up every room that he went into, and he would put a smile on everybody's face, and he is loved by his family dearly. And we'd just like to say, rest in peace, William Bush. And that does conclude today's case, the horrific murder of William Bush at the hands of his best friend, Dylan Thomas. If you have any comments, suggestions, or anything like that, please leave us a comment, like, share the video. And of course, if you have any tips or tricks to do with the colouring, please let us know. We are very new to this. And that's all for now. We will see you in the next case.